Okay, welcome back to the Mental Toughness Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Siebold, and today I want to talk about the idea, the concept of using humor in high performance. This is really, in my experience, a very misunderstood strategic tool to use when you're trying to elevate your performance. And so I want to talk about that. And before I do, I want to mention our sponsor for this particular show, mentaltoughnessblog.com. Mentaltoughnessblog.com is a video blog where I do short pieces on just mental toughness tips, tools, strategy, those kinds of things. It's all free. Subscribe to the Mental Toughness blog, subscribe to this podcast, and we'll get these things out to you on a regular basis. And then you can get little tidbits as you go just to raise your level of performance. It really makes a big difference. Okay, so using humor in high performance. This is one of those things that really isn't talked about except in circles of psychologists, really, or psychological circles, or people that specialize in peak performance, because here's the idea. When you get a performer that really wants to win, and a lot of people at lower levels don't want to win badly enough, and there's really nothing you can do at a super high level unless someone really wants to succeed at something. Like they're really pushing for it. When they are, they put a lot of pressure on themselves. And there's an inverse relationship, contrary to what you may have heard. There's an inverse relationship between pressure and performance. And here it is. As pressure goes up, performance goes down. I'll say it again. When pressure goes up, performance goes down. I don't care if you're Michael Smith or Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods or any of these great performers. People say, oh, well, these great performers, they perform so well under pressure. They don't. The truth is they don't. Okay, because what they're actually doing is reducing the pressure. You're perceiving that they're under a certain amount of pressure, except they're not perceiving that level of pressure. They've found ways, psychological strategies, to reduce the pressure they feel in a situation that most of us would look at and go, oh my God. I mean, I can't even imagine what they're experiencing. There's 1 second left for the NBA championship or the NCAA championship, and there's one free throw, and the score is tied, and they've got to either make it or they lose the game or they tie the game. What? Oh my God, I would choke. I mean, I wouldn't know what to do. Well, they don't usually choke. Not because they're good under pressure, but because they're good at reducing the pressure that we think they're actually experiencing full out. They're not. I know because I've been there. I've been with Olympic athletes. I've worked with pro athletes for years. I did that for 10 years. And they don't perceive it. There's tools they use. And one of those tools, one of the most popular tools, especially among athletes, is the use of humor. Because what does humor do? It relaxes us, right? We smile, we laugh, we have a little fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously, and pressure goes down. And it just works. I mean, I'll give you a personal example from a business standpoint. So my first big speech was in Kansas City, Robardo Hall, 7,000 people, salespeople. I was working with Bill Gove at the time, the father of professional speaking. I had never spoken to more than 300 people at a time in any audience. I spoke at a big Kiwanis Club in West Palm Beach the day before, a Thursday. This is a Friday night, 1998. 7,000 people, I'm freaking out. It's a huge audience. I'm thinking, I'm the mental toughness guy. I can't choke here, I need to get myself right. So I'm trying backstage, and Bob Proctor, the great speaker, had introduced us, and Bill Gove was going on stage, and then 12 minutes later, I was following him. And I was going to be on stage with Bill for the rest of the hour. And speaking with Bill, as we did for many, many years, for 5 years after that, until he passed away. So right before I'm about to go on, I said to Bill, Bill, I'm really nervous. Like I'm sweating, like flop sweat is falling off my face. I said, Bill, I'm really nervous. Do you have any last minute advice? He says, yes, I do, kid. Here's my advice. Now I've been doing this 50 years. He was 85 years old. At that time, he was 80, 85, 86, 87, something like that. He said, here it is, Steve. Now I want you to listen to this because I'm not going to have time to talk to you again before you go on stage. Here it is. He said, kid, if you were ever going to screw up a speech, tonight would not be the night to do it. And he laughed and almost fell over laughing. Then he ran up these stairs on the stage and he walked down the stairs and Bob Proctor greeted him and Bill took over and the crowd went nuts and I'm laughing and Bob Proctor comes back and backstage with me and he said, "How you doing?" And I told him a story and he thought he almost fell off. I mean, he just almost fell over. He thought that was the funniest thing. And for years after that, I mean, I'm talking 20 plus years up till the last time I worked with Bob, and we worked together on stage probably 100 times over the years. Bob would say, he'd introduce me or he'd be on first. He'd cover the microphone when the audience was clapping. And he would say, "Kid, don't screw it up. Steve, don't screw." He used to say it almost every single time. It was a running joke with Bob and I for 20 years. But you know, it was a funny thing. But at the same time, that was brilliant. See, Bill was a great coach. Bill knew how to relax me. I mean, I was a mental toughness coach. I should have known what to do with myself. And I was working through it, but it wasn't really working, frankly, because I was out of my element. You know, I was used to performing under pressure as an athlete. You know, people would say, "Well, how do you play in front of 10,000 people? How do you play tennis? How do you walk around with the press snapping, photographs of you and all that? And how do you do all that?" Well, you get good at it. You get used to blocking those things out, and it's contextual. You know, I was good in a lot of ways in that world, in that context. But now you take me out of a tennis outfit and a tennis court and put me into a stadium of 7,000 people. Well, that's all new to me. I've been in those stadiums. I've never been a speaker on that stage at that point. And so I'm out of my element, as they say. I'm a fish out of water. And so it wasn't working. And then Bill he knew because he had spent 50 plus years on stage all over the world. He's traveled around the world as a speaker 22 times around the world. Can you imagine speaking with everyone from Billy Graham to Zig Ziglar to, Norman Vincent Peale, just goes on and on. But he knew that world and he knew how to relax me and he did. And I went out there and I spoke and an hour later, my life never was the same. It just catapulted. It was like a movie. And he said it would. He said in an hour before, that's one of the things he said before we went on. He said, "Kid, in an hour, after we get done speaking, if it goes well, your life will never be the same." He goes, you'll never live the same way. You'll never see it the same way. And he was right. It never was the same. It was so much better in so many ways. The opportunities just opened up. Almost, and speaking has that kind of power, public speaking. But anyway, that's how we reduce. It's one of the ways we use humor to reduce pressure. So think how if you're coaching someone in mental toughness, how can you lighten them up? Now, I've had people on the contrary that don't know better, honestly, say, "Well, Steve, when you're coaching a team, especially athletes, or you're coaching a bunch of entrepreneurs, or you're a vice president of sales for a major corporation, and you've got a sales team, and you got to make numbers or people get fired. Look, you got to be a hard ass." This is what they say. Some people. You got to be a hard ass. You got to pound the table, man. You got to be Alec Baldwin in Glenn Ross. And if you haven't seen that movie and you're in sales or you want to see a movie, it's a strange movie. But Glenn Ross, pretty famous with salespeople. You got to be Alec Baldwin in Glenn Ross. You got to be a hard ass. You got to pound on the table. You got to scare him. You got to be intimidating. That's honestly someone who really doesn't understand high performance, because that's not true. Now, for some people, that works, but for most people, it doesn't. I'll tell you, when I worked at the Miami Dolphins, and I was in the locker room with guys that weighed 350, 400 pounds, and here I come, a skinny little tennis player at 190 pounds, and this guy weighs literally twice as much as me, and I'm grabbing him by the helmet going, focus. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I'm in the guy's face thinking, please don't kill me. But I couldn't say that to him. And sometimes with some people, you can hammer them. You can hit them on the head. Literally, I used to do that with the linemen. And because that's part of what I was doing. Because some of those guys respond to that. Most sports that are what they call gross motor skill sports. In other words, you're like football, where you're using pure brawn and skill, of course, and talent. But brawn is a big part of it. It's a gross motor skill, whereas tennis and golf are fine motor skills, right? Even boxing really can be considered roughly vaguely if that's the right word, a gross and fine motor skill, because it's touch, it's movement, it's strategy, as much as it is physical pounding. And so gross motor skills tend to be a little bit different. But of course, you're talking about sales, you're talking about entrepreneurship, you're talking about tennis, golf, any archery, anything like that, include basketball. You're talking about a fine motor skill sport where pounding the table and being very aggressive when you're a coach doesn't really work, because you want them in a state of emotional neutral. You want them in a state of calm. Why? So they can think. I'm not sure I care so much about the center or the lineman thinking as much. I want them to know what the strategy is for the play, and I want them to hit the hell out of the guy. But when a golfer is trying to make an 8-foot putt to win the Masters, I want them to think. And when a tennis player is out there trying to beat someone that's actually physically better than him or her, I want them to think. And so thinking at the highest level is usually manifested through calm, through what psychologists call emotional neutral, where you're not too high and you're not too low. You're emotionally grounded. You're emotionally calm. You're emotional neutral. And so what humor does is it brings you to a place. It can bring you to a place of emotional neutral. You know, it's kind of like when Ronald Reagan, if you're old enough to remember, and if you're not, you can look it up on YouTube. When President Reagan got shot and they interviewed him, they almost killed him. And he was in the hospital. And the first thing he said before he went into surgery to Mrs. Reagan, Nancy Reagan, our first lady at the time, he said, Nancy, I just forgot to duck. And he was using humor to lighten up. I mean, it was amazing. That went around the world back then like in a heartbeat. And there was no social media back in I think it was 81. Nothing like that. But he used humor. High performers know how to do this. And high-performing coaches know how to do it as well. So you inject humor in some way to lighten the load, to reduce the pressure the performer is feeling, whether that performer is you or someone you're coaching. Huge humor. It could be a joke. It could be a story. It could be an attitude. It could be just about anything. You're down 42-0, and you say, all right, guys, we got them just where we want them. Everyone laughs, and all of a sudden, everyone starts performing at a higher level. Why? There's a reduction in pressure, a substantial reduction in pressure. Have you ever thought about how is it that people get upset, like in golf, tennis, and really any sport? There's these upsets, right? Like the better team or the better person, player, athlete loses. Well, I'll tell you a real phenomena. A lot of it's because the person, the underdog coming in says, you know what, to themselves, to him or herself, they're saying, I got nothing to lose, baby. That's the most dangerous athlete out there. That's someone that's very, very dangerous. Someone that says, basically, I got nothing to lose. I'm going for broke. I'm playing full out. I'm not protecting anything. I got nothing to protect. I mean, they can kill you, but they can't eat you. What have I got to lose? And they go out there and they play full out with no fear and no pressure. And if the talent and the day is right, that's when upsets occur. And a lot of times people that don't understand high performance will say, oh, that's just unbelievable. How could it happen? That's how it happens. I mean, that's the primary reason that happens. They're playing with nothing to lose. Well, what if you could replicate that mindset? You can. And a lot of it's done through humor. Why is humor so powerful? Because it's so strong. Because it literally, you got the person just squeezing mentally, right? Going, I just have to win. I practice so hard. It's taking me years. If I win this, if I get this deal, if I get this contract, if I get this business going, if I make this money, if I win this competition, if I get into Harvard or if I get into this school or this whatever, oh God, I just got to get it. I got to get it. Again, pressure goes up, performance goes down. So they're squeezing so hard that they're literally reducing their access to their talent and their skills. They're reducing and limiting their access. But when they say, you know what? I could use this one. This would be good. I'd really like to win this. I really like to get this. I really like to succeed at this. But, I'll do the best I can. And see what happens. Watch golfers. Golfers are some of the best because golfers are some of the most highly trained from a psychological standpoint because of sports psychology mostly that's come into play in the last 40 years or so. They are some of those highly trained in psychology athletes in the world, probably the best trained. That's why you'll see some golfer in the Masters or some huge tournament and they'll say, well, you played the greatest round of your life and now you're up against Tiger Woods or Rory McIlroy or some other big player. And so how are you feeling? You've never won a major before. Now you're in the finals. You're going head to head with a legend, an icon, someone everyone in the world knows. No one's really heard of you. Here's your shot. What are you thinking? They're trained on how to think about that. That's why you watch them. They don't say something stupid. Typically, they'll say something that helps them relax because they need access to their ability. All of it. They're playing someone probably better than them, superior to them in skill. But they still have a chance to win, and they know it because that's how sports works. And so what they say is things typically like this is what they're trained to say. Not to say it to the public, to train their mind to think this way, to believe it. They're brainwashing themselves to believe it. What they'll say is, Tiger is probably one of the greatest golfers of all time. And, I had a good round today. I had a little luck out there. The wind was right and the club felt good. And, so we're just going to get a good rest tonight and have a nice dinner, get some sleep, and do the best we can tomorrow and see how it goes. It's just really an honor to be out there with Tiger. And, I'm just excited to be here. It's just a lot of fun. I've dreamed about this my whole life, so we'll see what happens. We'll go out there and give it the best shot we have, and hopefully we'll come out with a good result. We'll see what happens. Thanks. And they go, well, now you've heard it from Joe Blow. Joe was trained to say that. He was trained to say it not for the audience, but for himself. He was trained because we want him to think like that. Because when he goes out there and thinks, here we go, baby, I'm just lucky to be here. I mean, I've earned it, but how great is this? This is exciting. This is fun. I'm going to do the best I can. And if it's a good day and we have a little luck, we'll win. If not, well, we'll pack it up and do it the next time. See if we have a little better luck next time. They don't say, oh my God, I have to win. I have to win. That's the worst thing they can think because they're going to play terrible. So it's all about psychology, is all about trying to reduce pressure and perform at your best. Humor is one of the best ways to do it. I'd recommend, again, if you're a performer yourself, use it on yourself. If you're a coach, use it on the people you're coaching and see if you don't have the success that it's a major, major tool. It's not one of the small tools. There are a lot of those tools as well that work well when you add them up. This is a major one. Try it, see what you think. And I appreciate listening to the podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode.